I came home in hospital clothes. The IV patch still taped to my arm, but the iron gate had a new lock I didn't own. Buddy's leash, the one I had clipped to the back post for 8 years, was gone. On the bedroom window ledge, a red lace nightgown hung loose, swaying in the warm evening breeze. My throat closed, like someone had stuffed a handful of cold soil inside it. I couldn't scream. I couldn't breathe. I stood in the backyard like someone who had died long before she ever got home. If illness kept you away for 2 weeks, would your house still be yours or the cheating husband's new playground? Elaine Beckman had lived in the same house for 32 years. A single-story brick home in the edge of Asheville, North Carolina, where the mail came late and the magnolia tree bloomed early. It was a quiet place, the kind of place where people still waved from porches and left pies on doorsteps. She had worked most of her life as a senior accountant at a local chemical company. Conservative, predictable, responsible. That was Elaine. She balanced budgets, sorted retirement plans, and never once missed a payment. Richard, her husband, had worked in medical equipment sales. He retired early, claiming he wanted to spend more time with her. That was before everything shifted. They had 2 children, both grown, both gone, one living in Manchester, England, with 2 kids and a garden full of tomatoes, the other in Da Nang, Vietnam, teaching English and building a life in sunshine. Elaine was proud of them, but oceans felt even wider when illness came. The diagnosis was clear: stage 4 metastatic breast cancer. Incurable, manageable. Elaine had always preferred hard truths over false comfort. The doctors said, with proper treatment, she might have 10 years or more. That meant months in and out of the hospital, rounds of chemo, medications that left her dry-mouthed and aching. She cut her hair short before it could fall out. She packed her bags. She told Richard not to worry. At first, he didn't. He called every night, asked if the food was edible, told her Buddy, their dog, missed her. He even sent her a photo of the living room with her blanket still folded on the recliner. She had smiled at that. But then, the call stopped. He said a close friend had died, someone from his army days. The funeral was in New Mexico. 2 weeks. He said, maybe 3. He packed light. She believed him. On the 12th day, without a single word, she grew uneasy. The hospital room, once cold but safe, now felt suffocating. She stared at the walls. She checked her phone. Nothing. Just silence. Worry crept in, not just for Richard, but for Buddy. The little dog depended on her. Always had. What if he was alone? What if he was hungry? She convinced her doctor to discharge her early. Promised to rest at home. Promised everything. Then she called a cab, tucked her meds into a canvas bag, and made her way back. When the taxi pulled up, her stomach turned. The gate lock was different. Bright brass. New. Her key no longer fit. She stood there, shivering in her hospital-issued sweater, blinking in disbelief. Then she walked around the side of the house, down the stone path she'd swept every spring for years. Buddy, she called softly. No bark, no sound, no sign. The back door was slightly ajar. She stepped in. The house smelled different, like lavender and something sweet she couldn't place. The air was warmer, heavier. Her breath caught before she even reached the hallway. When she turned the corner into the bedroom, her knees gave way. Richard was there, lying on the bed they had shared for 3 decades. His arm was draped across a woman maybe half a generation younger. Long curled hair, tanned skin, a red lace gown that clung to her like something from a magazine. Elaine screamed. It came from somewhere she hadn't felt in years, somewhere beneath the scars, beneath the skin. Then darkness took her. She woke up to the sound of a machine. a slow, consistent beep. Her eyes opened to a hospital ceiling, clean, blank, still. Her children were there, both of them. The daughter from England holding her hand, the son from Vietnam sitting by her feet. They said words, kind ones, frightened ones, but they didn't reach her. Nothing did. Elaine didn't cry, didn't speak. She just listened to the rhythm of the beeping and felt the shape of silence sitting on her chest. It wasn't just betrayal. It was displacement, a kind of erasure only a cheating husband could orchestrate with such casual cruelty. 2 weeks was all it took to replace her with someone younger, someone local, someone disposable. She had been loyal, faithful, even generous. She had trusted him to feed their dog, and instead, he had used the quiet of her illness to change the locks and make space for someone else in the very bed where she used to pray for more time. That night, she lay staring at the wall. Her children had fallen asleep on the chairs beside her. Nurses came and went, but Elaine didn't move. Her thoughts were sharp and bitter, not just for what he had done, but for how easy he made it look. The marital betrayal wasn't loud. It was quiet, efficient, like slicing a sheet of paper in half. She felt the weight of elder financial abuse, too, not just in money, but in power, in the way her absence became opportunity, in the way he made her feel like a ghost in her own story. She turned her face toward the window and whispered, "I spent a lifetime keeping that house whole, and he erased me in 14 days. Many women mistake long years with someone as a sign of certainty. Elaine Beckman had believed that decades together meant something solid, something unshakable. But familiarity is not protection, and shared memories are not a legal guarantee. In moments of vulnerability, like illness or aging, it is not love that preserves dignity. It is law. She believed, like many do, that if she was hurting, the man who stood by her for 30 years would stay. That suffering bound them closer, but pain doesn't inspire loyalty in everyone. For some, it creates opportunity, and Richard took it. His betrayal was not violent. He never raised his voice. He didn't strike her, but that made the damage harder to detect. He simply used her absence to rearrange the life they built. That is the cruel reality of emotional abandonment. There were no bruises, just silence, exclusion, and a woman left outside her own home. Elaine's greatest mistake was believing that love protected her property, her rights, her place in the home. But marriage is not a promise kept by memory alone. It is a contract, and like all contracts, it can be broken, especially in a grey divorce, where age, illness, and shifting priorities turn long partnerships into quiet exits. By the time she realized it, the locks had changed and the bed had been given away. Richard's betrayal didn't just steal Elaine's trust, it erased her daily life. Her name on the deed didn't matter if she couldn't open the door. That is why, in stories like this one, another family betrayal story, in a long line of quiet tragedies, understanding your legal standing is survival. She acted, not in rage, but with clarity. The first thing she did was obtain her complete medical file, hospital records, treatment plans, evidence of long-term care and dependency. This wasn't just a personal loss, it was evidence of vulnerability, of emotional and logistical reliance. Then, with her children's help, she found an attorney. Not just any attorney, but one who specialized in elder emotional abuse and spousal protection. With their guidance, she filed for a protective order stating that she had been displaced from her home, while seriously ill, by someone with access to her life and finances. Her children helped gather proof, photos of the changed locks, footage from a neighbor's camera showing her standing outside her own gate, records showing Richard had emptied shared accounts during her hospital stay. She filed for divorce, but not on neutral terms. She asked the court to divide the property unfairly, in her favor, because of what he did. She requested to remain in the home. She submitted evidence of financial misconduct, and the court agreed. Somewhere along the way, Richard wrote a letter. He asked to meet. She allowed it one meeting, in her lawyer's office, with her son beside her. She didn't yell, didn't argue. She listened, nodded once, and stood up to leave. That was all. Later, she updated her will, not out of spite, but out of peace. Her estate would go to her children, and a portion to the orphanage, run by her lifelong friend, a place she had visited regularly before her illness. Her signature on that paper was more than legal. It was her reclaiming something. This was never just about a cheating husband. It was about the quiet ways a woman can disappear, and how she can choose against grief and betrayal to exist again, with full name, full rights, and full voice. Elaine Beckman sold the house without ceremony. No final tour, no lingering glance at the bedroom window. She signed the papers, turned the key in, and let it all go. Then she packed lightly, first to England, where her daughter welcomed her with a quiet guest room, a teapot always warm, and the voices of grandchildren she had only seen in photos. Elaine learned their routines, sat on the garden bench in the mornings, watched them build forts out of couch cushions. She let herself belong to their world. Then to Vietnam. Her son's apartment overlooked the river. The air was thick and warm, filled with smells she didn't recognize. But she learned. She followed the rhythm of the street, the sound of scooters, the laughter of children calling her grandma in a language she didn't speak. She laughed too, sometimes. She forgot to feel old. When she returned to North Carolina, it was not to Asheville, but to a smaller place, a modest house near the edge of town, a short walk from the orphanage where her best friend had worked for decades. A place she had visited once a month before cancer interrupted everything. She picked it back up, that rhythm of visiting, of showing up, of listening to little voices call her name. No one at the orphanage knew that part of her estate now belonged to them. That decision was private and peaceful. Elaine didn't chase reinvention. She didn't dye her hair or try to be someone new. But she took a course in candle making, something small. With her hands, she opened an Etsy shop, called it Light Left On. Each candle had a name. No more locks. A room with light. Returned. She didn't speak of Richard, not often, but when asked once at a community meeting what forgiveness looked like, she answered, not having to say his name anymore. The woman he brought into her bed left weeks after the truth was exposed. Richard lived alone, in a rental apartment. No one checked in, no one asked. Elaine didn't feel victorious. She felt returned, not to the past, but to herself. In one of the local gatherings, standing before a group of women her age, she said quietly, "I used to live in a house. Now I live in myself." That is the story, not of revenge, but of quiet reclaiming. And in that, something unshakable. Because someone can take your home, but they cannot take the sky. So today, check the documents. The deed to your house, the name on the account, the signature on the will, and if you feel shut out, silenced, or invisible, write a new will. Call a lawyer. Talk to someone who knows your name. And if this story made something in you ache, do one more thing. Leave a comment. You never know who is reading, sitting in a hospital bed, or standing outside a locked gate, wondering if her story is already gone. Let her know it's not. This is not the end. Not for her. Not for you. Not for any of us. Not as long as we speak, even in whispers. Especially in whispers. That's where the healing begins, with the quiet truth. of a woman who once loved a cheating husband and still chose to live.